And wave pool would be the same.
And wave pool, okay, we'd use that for a wading pool, like for kids with a play structure?
Yeah, like 18 inches.
Okay, but when I give you a cost per square foot for a wading pool, how do you know how you're going to plug in cost for any water features and things like that?
You're really complicating this, Phil, when all I want to know is what a pool costs today in 2027.
Welcome to the Aquatic Perspective by Sunbelt Pools. I'm Phil Collins.
And I'm Robert Morgan.
Today on the Aquatic Perspective, we're going to be talking estimating.
Spreadsheets.
It's going to be enthralling. You're just going to love it. Now, Robert, you asked me an interesting question earlier. You want to repeat that question for me about the cost per square? What was that about?
Yeah. So Phil, what's the cost per square foot of a pool these days? Like, not just today. We're going to build it in 2027. What's the cost of a pool in 2027, square foot?
And I should be able to pull that just out of the air?
Yeah, you just got it in your spreadsheet.
Oh, man, Robert, a lot of things are coming to mind. First off, where's the project located?
Dallas.
Dallas?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an in-town project.
In town, yeah.
Okay, well, that solves a little bit of the question, but what kind of pool is it? How many pools does it have?
Lazy River.
It's a lazy river?
On a high-rise.
A lazy river on a high-rise.
Yeah,
okay, so
that's
you've now complicated things quite a bit. You bring up something.
Hey, you're asking a lot of questions. I just need your general.
I was trying to get some clarification so that I could give you an accurate budget so that when you come back to me later and you want me to scope this thing.
Because I need to be able to just in my spreadsheet have pool in a square foot cost.
So just
for
one
every
line
project
item for pool. And so that every time you do a pool project, you have a cost per square foot.
Every single one of them.
You would use that same cost per square foot for a 50-meter competition pool.
Yeah.
Because that would make sense.
Right? Same, yeah, because
it's a pool.
And wave pool would be the same.
And wave pool, okay, we'd use that for a wading pool, like for kids with a play structure?
Yeah, like 18 inches.
Okay, but when I give you a cost per square foot for a wading pool, how do you know how you're going to plug in cost for any water features and things like that?
You're really complicating this, Phil, when all I want to know is what a pool costs today in 2027.
All right, so obviously, we're being a little facetious in the way that we're approaching this.
And these are, if you can imagine, these are arguments that we get to have on a regular basis.
It's actually funny. Friday, I get a call. I think it was 4:30. This gentleman got referred to us by a general contractor that we're working with down in Austin. And so he did. He called and he said, "Hey, Phil, I need to plug in a number, cost per square foot for a project down here." And my first thing to him was, well, okay, could you tell me approximately where this project's located? Is it on a high rise? Because a lot of the projects that we get approached for down in Austin are, in-town high rise type projects. And so I started asking him these specific questions. He's like, "Can you send me an email and ask me all these questions?"
Because I don't know.
Because I don't know the answers.
Because it's just a pool, Phil. It's just a pool.
And he did reply later, and he gave me a little bit more specific information. But the point is that both of us get asked that question a lot. And since I do the estimating here at Sunbelt Pools, I want to be available for different people in the industry, whether they're an owner, an architect, an engineer. I want to be able to provide accurate budgets because if it's a project that we're going to go after, I want it to be realistic so that when numbers come in on bid day, the
owner's got an expectation of what it's going to be.
Right. And so if we use that cost per square foot number, which you can arrive at a cost per square foot number for
that project
once you've done an extensive takeoff.
Yeah.
And that can even be in the budgetary phase, but there has to be a list of qualifications of what's actually included in this pool. How deep is the pool?
Sure.
Right? I mean, that can change because cost per square foot is one thing, but if it's a 4 foot deep, let's say therapy pool, or it's a 12-foot deep dive pool.
Well, or you can't even just call it gallons, because if you look at a competition pool that requires that will allow a 6-hour turnover rate,
right,
and then compare that to a similar sized wave pool, all of a sudden that you need a 2-hour turnover rate for a wave pool, and that gallonage per minute in that filtration system is completely different.
Right.
Which, if you're looking at an equipment room for a wave pool, that equipment is 35 or 40% of the cost of the job.
Right.
Whereas if you're looking at a competition pool, that it's very, very different.
Yeah. And look, when I'm asking those questions to that first person, I'm not expecting them to have a ton of information. In fact, I tell them, hey, I don't need to know everything. I just need to know, what are you going for? Like,
Yeah.
what is your end goal here? And, sometimes they are the person tasked on their board or their ISD. It could be anything, right? They're the person tasked with going and starting the process.
They're in the dreaming process of
Yes.
what's possible.
Right. And, a lot of times in that, I'll get the information that allows me to put together a budget, but I don't like even just giving just random numbers. I want to take the time and put together a scope of work, because if I just send you a number, a rough order of magnitude is what they call it, a ROM, that's great. But what does that include?
Well, and and similar to what and why we're doing this podcast, when we communicate with any customer or any operator, we want to be an expert in the room. How much mud on our face is that if we start out with, and again, we're not going to ever tell you a square footage price, but if we were to start out with a price of call it $1 million for a pool.
Right.
And then when the project comes to fruition, it's even 50% off.
Yeah.
Which in reality, I think that a lot of the time owners do see expectation of somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million. And the reality of it is 1.5 or more. I mean, somebody like us hearing a 50% error is in an estimation is terrifying.
Right.
But I do think that it's something that's relatively common in the industry, and it's a disservice for ownership.
Yeah.
Because how can they plan and how can they dream if the information that they're getting is so poor?
Right. And things move pretty fast pace. We're bidding a lot of projects. We're managing a lot of projects. We're running, company processes, infrastructure. We're doing a lot of things. So if there was a constant inflow of, hey, Phil, I need a budget for this. I need a budget for this. It does get a little bit overwhelming at times. Yeah. Luckily, for the most part, it does come in waves. So it's not so overwhelming. But I try to let people in the industry know. I talk to the main aquatic engineers and let them know, hey, I would love to do a budget for you I don't even care if the project's in an area where we're going to be. If you need some high-level budget numbers, not cost per square foot, but a high-level budget, in other words, you give me just enough information so that I can go in. Where's the project located? What type of pool is it? What type of filtration system are you considering? Just a little basic information. Then I can come in and put together a detailed scope of work that not only tells you the price that you're looking for, but also lets you know, hey, I'm not including these things. I'm not including the deck, electrical, code mechanical, code plumbing.
I mean, for that benefit, let's clarify those things that may change.
Yeah.
So is it an activity pool versus a competition pool? Is one thing that will change. What else? What other kind of items?
I mean, the main thing is, if it's a municipal aquatic facility, they're going to likely want to hit all age groups, right? Is there a climbing wall for
or
the older kids?
The size of the slide.
Right, the size of the slide. Are we talking about a 20-foot tall tower and the slide has 2 turns, or is it a 40-foot tall tower with 5 turns or something like that? Is it an open flume slide, a closed flume slide? The aquatic play structure, is there theming? Because even on an aquatic play structure or water features, you can get the standard stuff, which still has to be priced out per that project, right? But then, if they want to add very specific theming for that play structure, that could, and I'm going to butcher what it would actually be, but let's say it adds 20% to the play structure. You don't know that in the budgeting process.
Right.
And so there has to be contingencies, and the industry doesn't like the word contingencies when it comes to pricing. They want to just assume that the price that you gave them, that's what it should cost, even if you're just guessing.
But I mean, so contingency in the budgetary phase though is responsible 100%. Rather than the opposite. And I think, and again, like you said, people don't like that word contingency. We put that in there for the sake of, again, we don't want to be that guy that's underselling the value of the pool,
right?
Because we want, in the end for you to have that exactly what you want. And so typically with us, when you're getting a budget, that first budget, that initial communication that we're going to have, that pricing is probably going to be quite a bit higher than the reality of the project.
Right.
And then as things get defined, that amount of contingency and that those doubts that we keep that keep that number high, those questions start closing up.
Yeah.
And we're able to get closer and closer and closer to the point that we leave budgetary phase and turn to quote phase and or proposal phase,
right.
And we're very, very close, from what that budget was.
Well, and it helps for me when I set up a project in our system and I go in and I title the spreadsheet that I'm working in that this is a budget, and I put the date, and I'm able to go back 6 months, maybe a year later when that project actually bids, and see, where was I? What was I thinking about? I assumed, okay, this is a lazy river that looks a lot like a lazy river that we built somewhere else. I went and looked at that takeoff of the exact piping that we ordered for that project. So I plugged it in for this one. Does that match? But that brings up, where's the mechanical room?
Yeah.
If you've got a project where a mechanical room's 20 feet from the pool, and then you've got another one that's 300 feet from the pool, and you've got 10, 12-inch lines or for some reason running to that pool, that's going to make $250,000, $500,000 difference right there.
Yeah.
And so those are specific things that a lot of people aren't going to have right at the beginning.
And
it would definitely help.
Another huge thing that people don't necessarily consider, because again, they're looking at a finished product, but and the similarity of one compared to a location elsewhere.
Yeah.
But you look at the geotech report and how different a pool can be depending on what soil it's sitting in,
right,
or what engineer designed the structure for it.
That's right. It's funny that you brought that up. That was my next thing that I was going to bring up, because when I first
it's like we have the same mind.
I know, it's like right here.
Yeah. It's this eye contact.
But when I started doing estimating in 2012. I would say for the most part, 90% of the pools that I would see during estimating were on grade.
Yeah.
In other words, they were not peer supported.
Or
right?
even waffle slab.
Yeah. Most of the time, we were seeing a lot of just slab on grade, maybe some soil remediation that was done.
30 inches of select fill
with
on
a 12-inch gravel cap on top of it. For a drainage course under the pool. That was pretty standard.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember the first couple projects when I started to see piers with void forms.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time,
it was intimidating for us at the time,
especially because not only did I not know anything about void forms at that time, but I didn't know that there were things called storm voids that would be a way better product when you're building a 10,000
in a hole.
Yeah, in a hole that's 10 feet deep, and it's going to be exposed. Your rebar is going to be exposed for maybe a month because it's a 10,000 square foot pool. You got a lot of rebar details, piping to install, and things like that. And so that just brings up a whole different question, because if you're bidding on a project that has piers and it's supported on those piers, and so there's a void space underneath with void forms, you might be bidding against contractors that were like us that they don't have any knowledge that, hey, you cannot install standard carton forms under this pool and expect that it's not going to rain.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get lucky if you're building it in July, but any other time of the year.
Or the other thing I've seen is that they take those void forms and then wrap them in plastic,
right,
and make them again useless to the purpose of it.
Right.
Because the whole idea of the void form, the standard void forms should collapse once they hit with water. The idea of the storm voids is that they collapse with the pressure. It's not that they dissolve in the same way.
That's right. And so those are just more things to add on top of the I don't knows. I don't know until I see a geotech and until I get a recommendation from an actual engineer that's reviewed that geotech. I don't know the thickness of your concrete. I don't know the rebar schedule. Is this pool have skimmers? Does this pool have gutters? Like, there are so many different things that go into the cost of a swimming pool. Getting just a rectangular shape and saying, what's that cost? It's hard to do in reality.
It's irresponsible to give an answer.
It is. And we should be doing our due diligence every single time that we get the opportunity to approach a project. Somebody comes to us, and we can usually tell pretty quickly if it's one we don't want to go after. And I will let those people know, hey, where this project's located, Sunbelt Pools is not going to bid this project. If it's a client that we've done a lot of work with and they do want a rough order of magnitude, I am willing to do that, but I'm very transparent in the fact that we're not going to be bidding this project. I'm trying to help you as much as I can, but I'm also going to make sure that there's plenty of contingencies in there so that this person's covered, so that when they go, to whoever they've got to provide that number to, that they at least have something they can stand on.
Sure.
But then I'll also let them know the questions that they should start asking, whoever the owner is or whoever if they've already got an architect involved, start asking some very specific questions up front, which will likely drive the cost more than adding a play feature.
Sure.
If you don't know that you need 10 feet of soil remediation and 3 feet of select fill on top of it, that could be a very large cost that has to happen at the very beginning of the project. You don't get to value engineer that out, which, to bring that up, I can remember a project that we did in, I think it was 2016 or so, and there was horrible soil conditions. And this was a aquatic engineer that we had never worked with before, and they were showing, and all of the pipe chases running back to the mechanical room were basically encased with geofoam blocks, right? So you basically take a geofoam block, core it out so that you can set it down on the ground, install your piping inside of it, put more geofoam on top of that, and that goes all the way back to the mechanical room. And I was estimating that project in 2014 or 15, and I can remember going back and forth and pricing all these different options, and eventually it was decided that they were going to value engineer out the geofoam.
And just let all of that piping
run on grade.
Yeah,
and it was
terrible soils.
That's right. It was recompacted terrible soils, but the main issue there is that the pool area was not supported by by a pier foundation, but the building was. So you have piping in very expansive soils going to a building that is on piers, and so you have things moving very differently and at varying depths. Some of that piping 3 foot deep up by the pool, but dropping down to the mechanical room as much as 20 feet down into a basement area.
I wonder if any of that piping ever broke.
There has been quite a few issues over the years, and it comes back to that responsibility of when you're providing that value engineering, you almost don't want to.
Yeah.
Like the engineer's shown it to be this way. And
there was a thought process that went into it initially.
Somebody had a very good idea, and it was value engineered out. And
specifically on this project, we've gone back, and of course this has not been blamed on us. We did wind up building this project, and just about every year that they have a shutdown period where we go tunneling, digging and tunneling to go and resolve piping problems.
Yeah.
Because we've had anywhere from 6 and 8 inch piping breaks to even 1.5 inch or not. I don't think there's any 1.5 but 2 inch pipe breaks on that job.
Right. And so when you're at that beginning stage of a project, you are mostly just thinking about design and cost. You want to know, I've got this space, we've got this demographic that we're trying to build something for. What does it cost? However, if you're not thinking about what does it take to operate this facility, definitely at the beginning, but 10 to 20 years down the road, and the headaches that you're possibly going to cause by trying to get as much as you can in this tight little budget, and then you're not making room for the things that actually matter.
Well, and the things, unfortunately, and we've talked about this before, there's so much that's underground that matters so much to a project.
Right.
In the way that it's stabilized, in the way that the piping's run, in the way that the rebar is placed, whether or not it's on void boxes, whether or not it has the ability to even touch soils.
Right.
Yet all that is cost driven. And all that all those things that I just mentioned increase the cost of a project, yet once it's built are never thought of again. And it's got to be a frustrating thing for the owner to know that they're putting so much cost into things that don't add necessarily customer value, but add value to the project because that pool's going. The longevity of that pool is increased because of what we've done.
Well, a lot of the things that different mechanical systems manufacturers will say well, we can provide a great ROI because if you put in this specific equipment, you're going to use less chemicals, less electricity, all those things. But I don't think too often that ROI, if let's say it is a facility that's trying to make money, which I would hope most do, but there are some that know that they're subsidizing so that they can provide it to the community, which is great. But if you're trying to have you're looking at the bottom line, you want a good ROI on return on investment on this aquatic facility, but you're not taking in to thought that if you have to replace the plaster multiple times because the rebar when it was placed was too close to the surface, and so now you've got plaster popping off all over the place because rust is coming through. It's just creating a bond break between the substrate, the concrete, and that plaster. And now you've replastered a pool that should have been replastered once, maybe in 10 to 15 years. You've done it 3 times in 10 to 15 in that same time. So all that savings that you got on VFDs and chemical controllers and chemical systems, it's pennies on the dollar compared to the costs that were incurred because it wasn't built properly or engineered properly, and so
or poor products weren't specified even.
Right.
I mean, and you can take this on to even as far as looking at like a Murtha pool, where it's a linered pool, has some additional upfront costs, but the longevity and the warranty of that more than pay for itself over a short amount of time.
Which is definitely a whole nother conversation. If somebody doesn't even know what Murtha is, which is a stainless steel wall panel that's got an impregnated PVC liner on it with a PVC liner that goes on the floor and is welded to the panel. That's about the easiest way to explain it. Right. So instead of standard concrete construction, you have a concrete floor with stainless steel wall panels. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So there's so many different instances where that comes into play, whether it's a high-rise pool, but even a competition pool.
Competition pools and leisure pools too.
There's so many different options. And so when you're trying to think about what does it take to actually build this pool and to have the best pool with the best warranty with something that, if I was tasked with providing the community with something that's going to last, for a long time, cause less headaches, I would like to know all the different things that are out there. And when I'm looking at a cost delta, because standard concrete construction costs whatever, percentage less than a Murtha, but to have that data of, okay, but the first time that you replaster the pool, are you already losing that amount?
Well, and if you consider the specifications for most projects, the standard warranty on a project is a year for like plaster and things like that. And it's not too uncommon to find that 2-3 years in, the defects in the materials start to show. And in truth, most of these companies that provide the finishes have a longer warranty than what the project. And so as an operator, you can go back to the finish company and say, for instance, let's just hypothetically say that like Diamond Bright had a failure.
Yeah.
And you could go back to the Diamond Bright and say, we have a failure here. We need to have this remediation done. This should be covered under warranty. And 9 out of 10 times the finish company is going to come back and say, that's operator, that's some kind of error.
The curing process wasn't done properly.
Yeah, or come up with an excuse. Whereas companies like Murtha, who stand up almost overdoing the warranty, making sure that the customer, really taking out that, utilizing a customer service mentality of we know that we provided extra value at the beginning of the project, and throughout the life of this pool, we're going to provide that extra value for you.
That brings a much bigger question into it, and that's with companies like Murtha, and I believe Sunbelt Pools is, and I think we're going to hit this in one of our future episodes, of just the quality that you're paying for. there's a difference between, hey, let's go make money by building pools, and hey, let's build pools, let's build them great, and if we make money and have a great quality of life in the process, that's all a bonus.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, for me, for working here, it's my 17th year, I know that when I come to work here, the conversations are about how are we going to do things better to serve our employees better, to serve the industry better. And again, we look at the numbers and we want to make sure that we're hitting our goals and running our projects efficiently and making the margins that we would like to make. But the point is that we're going to stand behind.
Well, and we're a company that's building a customer base by building swimming pools, right? And so the expectation is that the customer at the end of the day is going to be happy with what they've got, and our expectation for our crews and where it lies on us is that we have to figure out how to meet that customer's expectation by building them a swimming pool or servicing their swimming pool, and it's our job to figure out the efficiency.
Right.
But at the end of the day, our goal is to create a customer. And if we're not doing that, then we're failing in our mission.
Which brings back to the beginning of this conversation about the whole cost per square foot. There's more to it.
Yeah.
And there's more to a swimming pool company than a number.
That's it.
Or a website or a podcast. Like there's more to it than meets the eye. And how do you get to a number? By having conversations.
That's it.
By building a relationship, which is why I offer, I mean, we essentially do all of our budgeting for free. I guess the only time that someone pays for is if we get a contract, because we do get paid to build the projects. But I mean, there are so many times where I have all these folders that are all the project data from projects that we never got,
and sometimes didn't even bid.
Right, didn't even bid, but we budgeted them.
That's right.
In hopes that, hey, maybe this would be a great opportunity, build the relationship early with the client. Mm-hmm. And if you never do that, then you never are building those relationships. You're also, it keeps me sharp as the estimator to be able to see so many different types of pools, to approach it from the budget phase all the way to proposal phase, and to be able to see how the project and the plans progress throughout time, so that when I need to do another budget, I know the things that are missing.
And it doesn't take a lot of the information you've already got.
Right. And so I've built templates and I've built processes for myself that make it to where my estimate, my guess, my rough order of magnitude is very accurate, because I have enough data from past projects and just from experience.
And it's why we get the opportunity to do it as much as we do.
Right.
I mean, in truth, I think that all of the national and most of the local contractors or designers utilize our services, utilize this service to make sure that the budget that they're providing for the customer is accurate.
Yeah.
And I think that we've developed a great system to provide that service for them.
Yeah. And I think the scope of work goes above and beyond what's expected at the very initial budgetary phase. But I want to provide that. I want to give you as much clarity as possible, because if I'm going to spend any of my time doing something for you, even if it's free, I want you to feel like you got value.
Yeah, it's going to be
right?
It's got to be meaningful.
I think,
or what's the point?
Right. One of the quotes that I've heard a lot is like, if someone gives you free advice, the advice is as good as what you paid for it.
Yeah.
Which is free. So in other words, not very good advice.
Right.
I don't want to be that person.
No, that's right.
Like, even if I am doing a service for you for free, I want it to be something that you could go to a board meeting or something like that and be like, hey, Sunbelt Pools put this together for me. Look how detailed it is.
Yeah.
I think we could trust this. We need to make sure we call them back, when it comes time for bid time.
And it's not free. The service that you provide, I guess it could in the end be free. But in truth, again, we're developing a customer base, and we're developing that loyalty, and we're developing what will hopefully be the beginning of, even if it's not on this project, it's a relationship that's going to continue on to the next one.
Yeah. I mean, we can throw out numbers. We can give scopes of work, but it's going to be the relationship building that builds the trust, so that when you actually get out there to the project and you're building it, you know that you're working with people that care more than just that number. It's not just about a number. It's about a relationship, and it's about taking it from the very beginning of the project through the end and building customers for life. Would you say that?
Absolutely. So seriously, how much is a pool per square foot?
All right, whatever, Robert. Whatever. Man.
This is fun today, man.
This was.
Enjoyed it.
All right, man.
Hey, so this is episode 5 that we've done now. Yeah. So we're on all the major platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple. Is that all of them?
For now, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So check us out on any of your favorite platforms, and hope you enjoyed the podcast. Look forward to the next time.
See you guys.
Thanks.